when, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Throughout our nation's history, every 10 years, the United States Census Bureau sets out to map the ever-changing landscape of the U.S. population. In the 2000 census, however, a different type of history was made. For the first time in our country's history, a new option was added to the survey. When it came to selecting a person's race, you could now have the choice of selecting the option of being two or more races. According to the U.S. Census in 2000, there were actually approximately 1.6 million residents who claimed to be multi-ethnic Asian Americans living in the United States. That represented roughly 13% of the entire Asian American population just 9 years ago. Well, a lot has changed since then. My documentary is called The Pursuit of Hapaness, and just kind of pursuing what does it really mean, and what does it mean to each person. So, what does it mean for you? When you think of the word Hapa, is that something that you claim for yourself? Is it something that you accept? Is it something you embrace? And what do you understand of it?
Like, in my opinion, Hapa was a word invented by everyone else to describe kids who are mixed. Like, I don't really go around telling people, oh yeah, I'm a Hapa. It's just a word that people use to describe me instead of me using it to describe myself.
Regardless of how you define it, Hapas have some shared experiences or background or something like that. But on the other hand, to me, I just kind of see it as a more of just an adjective. It's a descriptor to describe what I am.
I grew up hearing the word hapahali because, it's pretty common in Hawaii. You got the Hapa kids or the hapahali or whatever. So I've never thought of it as derogatory, and I've always kind of understood, it just meant mixed, but I've always kind of understood it as half Asian, half white.
As far as being mixed growing up, I don't know, it was interesting. I kind of had a hard time finding my niche, I guess, just because the people I did know were either full white or full Asian, and I was kind of in the middle, and I didn't really know how to feel sometimes, like growing up, and it might have been an identity, kind of just figuring out my identity, I guess, in a way.
My name is Matt Shibata. Live here in Fremont, born and raised. I work in San Francisco at a small registered investment advisor called Morling Financial Advisors. And my ethnicity is half Japanese and half white, which includes a lot of things.
My name's Joylani Shibata. My maiden name's Leong, and my dad is Chinese and Japanese, and my mom is German and some other European stuff. I'm a financial aid advisor at a school in San Francisco.
As you know, grew up here in Fremont. Pretty diverse place. So as far as ethnicity, I guess we never really thought about ethnicity and things like that.
I think growing up, because most of the people I was surrounded with were white. I never really, as a kid, I wasn't really thinking about ethnicity or race that much. So I just kind of, the people who I was like was the people who grew up in the same town, had that same experience with me. I went to school with them since I was in kindergarten. So just a small town, so I guess coming and living in the Bay Area, it's a lot different experience.
Ever?
They give Matt a fork sometimes when we go out to eat.
Yeah, that's true.
But
No, I can't think of any.
growing up, I think because I was from a small community and both my parents were involved, like my mom would come in and help out in the classroom, and you know my dad would come and sing with people at their Christmas sing along or whatever, and so people knew, what my parents were, and I don't know how aware people were, and I don't really remember people talking about it or asking me, if we're having like second grade or whatever, those little grades, they do little celebrations, and everyone in the classroom shares something about their ancestry. So I didn't really feel like mine was that different. I mean, there weren't really any other Japanese or Chinese kids in the class, but I just, it was just kind of the same as everyone else. Everyone had, a different background or something unique about theirs. So I didn't really feel, I don't know, in terms of people questioning me and stuff, I didn't really get a lot of that until after I moved away from Arcata, because then, I'm new, people don't know me, they don't know what I am, they don't know my family.
A lot of times people, if they're white, they'll think I'm Asian. If I'm Asian, they'll think I'm white. But then also there's people that are Asian that identify with me because I'm part Asian, or there's white people that will identify me because I'm part white.
Growing up, I don't think I had a big consciousness of, oh, this is something unique, or that I was, being raised in two different cultures, but I still don't think it was necessarily raised in two different cultures. I mean, in some ways it was, but I mean, in a lot of ways, if you look at California, or even if you have two Asians coming together, and having a family, there, could be differences with them. That even if it's two Chinese people marrying each other or two white people marrying each other, there's differences in how people are raised and that type of thing. So in my case, I mean, yeah, I think it probably helped me to be comfortable with, as an adult, hanging out with different groups of people and that type of thing. But I didn't really think much about it.
How is it different than if I would have been brought up in Jelani's circumstance? I think, it's pretty simple. If we just talk and we talk about the different things that we're aware of, or we grew up, she's aware of a lot of things that I'm not, but on the same hand, growing up is, I'm exposed to different cultures a lot more.
I'm Julie Schumacher. I'm Chinese, German, Luxembourg, French, English, and Norwegian. I guess I have various memories put into one of like when I was younger and going to like Asian supermarkets with my mom in South Bay, and if you've ever been in one, there's crowded, and people kind of like push each other, and by culture that's just how it is like in those type of settings. And I just remember walking around with my mom, and people would just kind of stop and stare, like almost obviously, like they weren't trying to be polite about it. And then they'd start saying something like in Chinese that I didn't understand, and just later going back to the car and telling my dad, and he would tell me, well, they just want to look at you and like see what you look like, because like to them you look a little different. I think like being an only child probably shaped me more than being biracial. Like as far as race, I don't really think about what I am like every day, but being an only child, I think that just influences more of like how I respond to things, or how I act, or just how I grew up.
And then it was like
I don't have any control over it, it's already done. Yeah.
It'd be like the best movie in the whole world.
I'm sure you can find some fan fiction or something.
Yeah, whatever. After you watch
No, the weird stuff doesn't make it there.
I remember, growing up in the 80s, you could only fill in like one bubble, like for your race. And there's Pacific Islander, there's white, Caucasian, Asian, African American, and I just like really struggle with what to fill in, because you can only pick one. And I'm probably pretty sure that there's at least one test where I try to fill in half a bubble, like for white, Caucasian, half a bubble, like 4 Asian. But sometimes I would fill in one if I felt like more of that culture that day than the other one, and at other times I filled in the other one, like the opposite bubble. But I know nowadays you have the option to fill in more than one.
How does that make you feel?
I think that it's probably more relevant to be able to fill in more than one bubble because, you know, times are changing now and there are more kids that are biracial. I knew that I felt more comfortable like around the Asian culture, Asian friends, like just after, you know, several years of teaching when I decided to switch to a multi-ethnic church. And just after, you know, a couple of years, I realized my friends are Asian. Like, so even in a diverse crowd, I seem to gravitate toward Asians, like in Asian friends or Asian families, and just found myself more comfortable talking with them or spending time with them. You know, not that I didn't have friends who weren't Asian or didn't appreciate them or their culture. I just kind of noticed that being around them, there was just like their sense of humor was different, or just their customs or mannerisms were different, and not in a bad way. It's just something that was a little different than what I had been around. And when I switched to a school that was multi-ethnic, still half my class was Asian in some way, like Chinese or Vietnamese or Korean. But maybe like just being around the staff who were predominantly not Asian, it was still, you know, the same type of feeling of like, it's different, not a bad different, but just not where I feel more comfortable in. And yeah, so then I ended up going back to churches that were like mainly composed of different types of Asians. And so my friends today, I have a pretty diverse mix of friends from, you know, back when I was in school to who I hang out with now, and I would say generally most of them tend to be in the Asian category.
My name is Devin Flores. I was born in Houston, Texas. I'm 29 years old, and actually it's kind of interesting because my mother is actually Japanese. My dad is half Puerto Rican and half white, which consists of Irish and German. So I've got a pretty good mix. I guess growing up also, I probably identify more with my Japanese, my Asian side, just because my mom would, I grew up learning a little Japanese. My mom would speak to me in Japanese, cook Japanese food for dinner. So a strong Asian influence, I guess. Whereas my dad's side, he didn't really, he didn't speak Spanish, so I never learned Spanish growing up. So I guess, the Asian side was a stronger influence. I've run into some people who are shocked that I don't speak Spanish, and sorry, I don't. I did take French for a few years, middle school through high school. So I do have, know some French, but, no Spanish background at all. I've also been in just random areas of public where Mexican guy will come up to me and just, ask me, do you speak Spanish? Well, Espanol? I'm like, no, really, I don't. Kind of give me a look like, are you serious, or you just don't want to help me, kind of thing.
Did you yourself know anybody, know like friends or people that were also like kind of mixed race, whether it was Mexican and white or like whatever, like different other races, and any much of any of that, or was it kind of you guys are kind of the only mixed kids?
Pretty much, yeah. It was interesting. I think we're pretty much the only mixed kids on the block. Pretty much we knew all the kids that lived in the same neighborhood. The streets that were nearby and stuff, and we'd always hang out. But we're pretty much only mixed kids. But I didn't feel any, sort of. I guess I didn't feel that my friends treated me differently just because I was mixed. I felt like we were just, treated like everybody else. last month that happened at a blackjack table there. There was a Japanese couple there, and they were pretty much learning the game of blackjack. I had to help them a little bit, and so I did, explain it a little bit in Japanese. They're like, "Oh wow, you speak Japanese? Your Japanese is great." And I'm like, "Oh no, it's not. It's not that great." But so it's interesting, because I just come across people where they're just surprised, I guess, or catch them off guard. So I started playing poker in 03 actually, and coincidentally, this was a time where poker started to become really big because of Chris Moneymaker when he won the World Series of Poker that year. It was shown on ESPN, everybody's watching it, and seeing, oh wow, that's really easy. I mean, anybody can play that, and just, I think it really piqued the interest of a lot of people out there. I guess the thing I did like about poker right away was that saw it as a challenge to learn a new game. And also that it was also a game of skill, involved a certain level of skill, and not just purely, luck. Started playing a little bit more online, mostly to, learn the game better, more for practice, those long sessions where I just sit there and analyze hands and things like that. And also nice side income as well, which is always nice. And so I could see that I can consistently win playing a certain style. And that it was a good just opportunity to make some extra money. It's really a game of you go to war with people. It's a battle out there, and you're going against people. You're playing against each other. There are no friends out there, and I think I like the competitive aspect of poker as well. I've run into some of the pros that you see on TV, mostly at the World Series of Poker that's held in June every year at the Rio. It's actually now at the Rio, but if you go there, it's just an amazing scene. Just a big convention center filled with hundreds of tables, and you walk in, all you hear is the sound of chips, people shuffling chips, and it's really amazing if you are a card player. I encourage any card players out there to go and check it out.
Well, I've never necessarily felt, oh, I wish I was one thing or the other. I'm definitely very proud and glad that I'm Asian. Few reasons. One, I think Asian food, all different countries, is better than the other main regions of the world. And two, after having traveled in Asia, it was nice because people thought, depending on what country we were from, they thought one of us was from there. So I felt like that was an advantage, even though necessarily, American born and raised, like Vietnamese or whatever coming, that's not really seen as necessarily a good thing. But I still felt like, there's Chinese people all over the place. So when they found out I was Chinese, I felt like, it kind of gives you the edge or whatever. You have a connection with someone, even if, you're not from there, that, when we meet European tourists, not to say that they didn't have a good time, but I felt like there is something, different about our experience than theirs. Definitely because people treat you differently if you're from a different country than another person, but I felt like also our, ancestral background was kind of fun. That was my opinion.
Well, I feel lucky to be of like two major cultures. I feel like I get the best of both worlds, and I wouldn't be able to pick like one culture over the other one, just because I feel like both of them are who I am and have like shaped me like as a person.
I think just being mixed, it gives me at least the opportunity to explore different sides of myself. Although I don't identify much with my Hispanic side, it gives me a chance to just kind of see that I am different, from other people. And I guess just at least the opportunity to explore different cultures.
So I'm proud to be mostly Chinese because Chinese are everywhere. So that's nice, but I'm proud of everything. But Chinese connection. Whoop whoop. Matt would always
I don't know
make
how
me
you can
Matt.
be proud of it. You haven't done anything to do it. You're just born that way.
I know. So you can still be proud to be born some way.
And they don't treat you differently because of your ancestral background. They treat you differently because of how you look.
I know. And why do you think someone looks the way they look?
Yeah, it's because of your background. But
Yeah, who would always make me go talk to the Chinese lady to buy bus tickets or arrange a hotel?
Oh, that's because I don't like talking to those little ladies.
No, he thinks I have a connection. Which who's to say if it's
You don't have
all
a
in our
connection.
heads or what?
They treat you differently.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's just leveraging what we were talking about earlier. People treat you differently based on the judgments they make about you.
I'm glad to be Asian based on that judgment.
Okay. I'm glad to be me.